So going back to feet then, I guess we should concentrate on that because obviously we do loads of boots here, but most people in the UK and certain climbers and trekkers will be aware of mountaineering boots and the fact that you have double boot. Well, what they won't know about probably is double boots. So they've often worn single pitch ice climbing boots or walking boots, but people go, what's a double boot?
Yeah,
what is a double boot, Ed?
Indeed. So when we're talking about a double boot is one boot in itself, but it has two parts. It has an outer boot and an inner boot. And the important element, I guess, is that this boot will trap some air in between and it will stay warmer. This has got some thermal property, but the main thermal property is in that element of the boot there. There's another real benefit, and that is that when you get to a high camp, perhaps you spent 6-8 hours getting there, this would be a bit sweaty if you're there in the middle of the day and it's a little bit warmer. So you can then get to your high camp. You can either have these on inside a tent and they will stay warm because they're the main thermal element, or probably more likely you can then take this out of that and you can dry this off.
Right.
So if you imagine you've got a single boot, so it hasn't got a double element, you get to your high camp, it's damp inside from your day of getting to high camp. It then stays in your tent overnight and gets cold.
It's not like a dry arrow.
2 a.m. in the morning, you stick on a damp boot, you're going to get a cold injury.
Nice.
Really, really fast.
And I've heard people sometimes put these in their sleeping bag at night.
You can as well.
Would you recommend that or
absolutely,
not?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And this is nice and light. It's not going to sort of get in the way. It's not going to rip a sleeping bag. So you can either keep these on in your sleeping bag or take them off again to air them and just have them round your body somewhere.
It's much nicer putting a warm boot on in the morning that's been in your bag than a freezing one that's been outside. So what about fitting these? How did you go about fitting it? Because I mean, again, you're the experts. We get loads of people come in and say, I need some double boots or mountaineering boots. I'm a 7.
Yeah.
And they're sort of often not or shocked. Or
absolutely. I mean, it depends, doesn't it? I mean, the absolute first thing I would say about a pair of boots is always try them on. Lots and lots of people these days will want to buy a pair of boots, via the internet, and will not want to go and visit a shop. They won't have the ability to get to a shop with a really good range. But my absolute advice is to do so.
Yeah.
There are only 12 or 13 sizes, aren't there, of boots and shoes. There are millions of people on the planet. It isn't going to cater for everyone.
Yeah.
If you take a 6 or a 7 in one type of boot, the chances are it isn't going to be the same in another. And again, you're wearing these boots on an expensive trip.
Yeah.
You're spending a lot of money to get very high in a big mountain. You want to make sure that these are going to fit and fit you well.
On that,
and the difference between a couple of £100 of going to a good shop or taking a day off work versus not getting the right boot, it just isn't bear thinking about. I think.
I remember Tom saying to me once when I was thinking about how expensive they are, he said, well, why don't you split it between your toes? Because you pay anything to keep one of those toes. It's a lot less.
It's a really, really good point.
Yeah.
And there's a thing I always say to people as well is when you try a boot on, you want to do so when your feet are warm. So either wait until the end of the day or before you then go and put them on and try them on, get your feet warm, go for a bit of a run, go for a bit of a walk, come in with hot feet.
This is how they're going to be, isn't it?
Because it's how they're going to be. It's exactly how they're going to be. Yeah. Equally, think of the sock combination you're going to wear before you put them on. Are you wearing a liner sock and then a double sock, maybe? Are you wearing just one big solid sock?
What do you recommend?
Whatever you normally
do get asked that a lot, actually. Yeah. Like, what shall I wear socks-wise?
So I've radically changed in the last few years. I always used to wear a really tight-fitting liner sock that was going to wick the sweat away, and then I'd use a sort of a woolen double-stitch, loop-stitch sock on top of that, and that was my go-to for years. And I probably used that for 25 years. In the last 5, 6, 7 years, I've gone with a really, really dense sock that is still tight-fitting, but I've done away with the liner sock.
Right, okay.
Yeah, and it's just one sock. But that only works if they're quite tight-fitting and there's no movement.
And I guess the boot's got to fit well as well.
And it's got to fit
use
well.
the liners as a way of avoiding blisters, don't they? As well?
Absolutely.
So you've got to make sure they fit well,
Yeah, that's right.
I guess something to add as well, which we might think is obvious, but we get a lot of people come in and say, oh, these are my walking socks, and they're full of cotton.
Exactly.
Obviously, you don't want to use cotton because when it gets wet with sweat, it just doesn't dry, and that causes a lot of people blisters, doesn't it?
It's going to hold moisture, and it's going to stick to skin. And I mean, the thing, obviously, the thing that makes blisters is heat. So you want to try and transfer as much heat away from your foot as possible. Yeah. A bit of my go-to is actually when people have got them on and their feet are warm and they've got their good socks on and they've tightened the boot right up, so it's more or less as tight as it will go. Then to get people to kick the floor.
Yeah.
Because what people often forget about is, obviously you're climbing the mountain and you're sort of going like that or like that. On the way back down, at the end of the day, your feet are swollen and they're hot, and you're getting hotter and hotter and hotter and warmer as you go down. If your feet are swelling too much and your toes are impacting at the front of your boot, they might not be getting cold, but you're just going to impact them so much that you're going to lose toenails.
Yeah. And when they're squished at the front, you do
Absolutely.
they get colder again, don't they?
Absolutely.
There's less air and
Yeah,
warmth.
absolutely. Yeah. So you do need that little bit of gap at the front. So, some people would say go one size bigger. I don't know. I think it's really hard to judge.
Yeah.
I think trying them on is literally the only way to do it.